Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. So in this video I'm just going to run through some of the films that I watched during the month of March, not all of them, but please stay tuned. Coming up there's going to be the likes of John Wick Chapter 4, Michelle Yeoh, some 90s movies, King Hu, Park Chan-wook, Nina Menkes and more. In 1972, cinematographer John Alonzo, who has worked on films such as Chinatown and Harold and Maude, he worked on 6 films. And 2 of those were nominated for Best Picture, those being Lady Sings the Blues and Sounder. Well, I just watched one of his made-for-TV movies that he threw in that year, and that movie was called Visions of Death. Monty Markham stars in this as a college professor who has visions of a mad bomber who's planting bombs in a building somewhere, and then Telly Savalas is the cop who has to try and work with Monty Markham to try and work out where these bombs are going to be planted. Throughout March, the Criterion Channel has been showing films from Michelle Yeoh from the 1980s and 1990s. It's great at the moment to see Michelle Yeoh being recognised for her career. Although I must admit I perhaps haven't been quite on the bandwagon with Everything Everywhere All at Once as much as everyone else, although I do want to rewatch it. But yeah, from the ones that are showing on the Criterion Channel, I've particularly enjoyed the ones that Michelle Yeoh made in the 80s with director David Chung, those being Royal Warriors and Magnificent Warriors. The ones that are from the 90s with Johnny To, The Heroic Trio and Executioners, I have enjoyed those, but perhaps more on a stylistic level rather than for Michelle Yeoh's particular performance. But yeah, all good fun. John Wick Chapter 4 is the first film I've seen at the cinema in 2023, and I had an absolute blast with it. It is so cinematic, gorgeous cinematography, great production design, really colourful, and for a 2-hour 49-minute movie, insane levels of action. The set pieces, and there are numerous set pieces, are really creative and well designed. The film excessively leans into the absurd nature of the violence, making it really good fun to watch. I really enjoyed this film. It is the best of the John Wick movies. Parker Posey is an actress who I have seen before, but none of her films have particularly stuck in my mind for her performance. However, that all changes with Party Girl from 1995, directed by Daisy von Schurler-Meyer, who has done a lot of TV directing. Party Girl was just a huge amount of fun, and particularly for Parker Posey's performance. Parker Posey in this film is a very irresponsible party girl who gets jailed for having run an illegal party, gets bailed out by her godmother, and then tries to show that she can be a responsible adult by training to become a librarian at the same time as wanting to romance the local Lebanese falafel stand owner. Yeah, this was just great fun. Parker Posey's fashion sense in this is what will really appeal to a lot of people. She wears loads of fantastic clothes in this, but the film has a very loose structure to it, which might not appeal to some people. They might want more plot and more story, but I really liked the looseness of this film and just how funny it was and how playful it was. Yeah, really good fun. Party Girl. Decision to Leave is the latest film from director Park Chan-wook, director of Oldboy and The Handmaiden. This one involves a cop played by Park Hae-il who investigates a death of a man found at the bottom of a mountainside. His investigation leads him to possible suspicion of the dead man's wife, and the film concerns the growing suspicion of obsession with and manipulation by this woman who is played by Tang Wei. A fantastic performance from her. There are moments of absolute genius in terms of the cinematography and editing in this film, and it is always gorgeous to look at. I wasn't perhaps as emotionally invested in this as I wanted to be, but yeah, there's some superb filmmaking going on here and it is definitely worth seeing. Raining in the Mountain is a film from 1979 directed by director King Hu, who did A Touch of Zen, Dragon Inn and Come Drink With Me. This film is gorgeous. It's definitely worth seeing just for its visuals alone. The film involves an aging abbot at a Buddhist monastery who needs to appoint a successor. He invites several people there to help make his decision. Some of those invitees have other plans and want to steal a sacred parchment. Yeah, like I say, this film is just incredible to look at. It is filmed at a location in Southeast Korea, the Bulgushka Temple, which is a United Nations, I think, heritage site. Absolutely gorgeous location. And to approach this temple, there's a forest that the characters need to go through. So you get these gorgeous autumnal colours and rays of sunlight coming through the forest as well on their approach. At the end of the film, there's a glorious sort of chase and fight in this forest as well. There's beautiful coastal locations as well with these craggy, rocky outcrops. So yeah, on a visual level, this is definitely worth seeing. Like I say, don't expect too much action. This is mostly a dramatic film, but yeah, glorious film from King Hu. During the recent Top 25 of the 90s Community Challenge, I saw a lot of people include the film The Cure on their lists. Now I have this Laserdisc, but I hadn't seen it before, so I decided to pop it on. Yeah, this one stars Joseph Mazzello here alongside Brad Renfro. Brad Renfro is a kind of lonely bully, and he attaches to Joseph Mazzello after finding out that he has AIDS. And the two then form a bond, a friendship, with Brad Renfro's character wanting to help Joseph Mazzello find a cure, and they think they found one by seeing an article in a newspaper for a doctor in New Orleans, and so they want to go off on an adventure and try and find him. Yeah, I really enjoyed the playfulness of this one in terms of how the two young lads play together and journey together and some of their adventures. It does get a bit too overly sentimental towards the end for my liking, but I totally get why people, particularly if you were growing up in the 90s, would have attached to this. And yeah, interestingly, obviously, I mean, there was a big, Oscar nominated AIDS drama, Philadelphia, that came out in the 90s, but yeah, for younger audiences, definitely I get it why The Cure would be popular for them. So yeah, an interesting one. This one's directed by Peter Horton, who was perhaps best known for starring in 30 Something, but he's done a lot of TV directing work. Another 90s film that came up during the Top 25 of the 90s Film Challenge that was quite a surprise to me, and I won't say who posted it just in case you haven't watched their video yet, but you'll know who you are, and if you're watching this, hi. But yeah, the film was Sister Act 2 Back in the Habit. Now, I had seen Sister Act originally at the cinema, and I hadn't been a huge fan of it, to be honest, so I hadn't bothered to see Sister Act 2 Back in the Habit. But yeah, I'm actually quite pleased I've now caught up with this, and I totally get why the person involved perhaps chose this as being a personal favourite. Obviously, they've got much more personal reasons than from seeing it at the time than I have from watching it now. But what I find interesting about this film, a couple of things. One is it's directed by Bill Duke, and it comes 1 year after him having directed Deep Cover, which is on the Criterion Collection. But no doubt Sister Act 2 probably gave him a bigger box office hit than Deep Cover did. But the other thing that's really fascinating about this film is that it involves Lauryn Hill as one of the inner city classroom students. Now, Lauryn Hill, she had been in Steven Soderbergh's King of the Hill just 1 year before, but only as an elevator operator. And then this is about 2-3 years before she really launches into the stratosphere with her career with the Fugees, and then later on her own individual career as well. So yeah, she's I guess pretty much an unknown at this time, and she is definitely the best thing about the film. I mean, she's really great here. I mean, a beautiful voice, obviously, and a real sign of some good acting talent as well. And it would have been really interesting to see if she could have taken on more film roles if her music career hadn't been quite as amazing as it was. So yeah, I mean, I've actually seen Lauryn Hill in concert maybe about 8 years ago, I think, and probably around the time that this film was made in 1993. I mean, it features a scene here where Whoopi Goldberg and the nuns are doing a rendition of the Temptations' Ball of Confusion, and I was thinking, yeah, I think it's about that time when I actually saw the Temptations in concert at the Fairfield Halls in Croydon. So yeah, good fun. The film also co-stars Barnard Hughes and James Coburn, and also Jennifer Love Hewitt in a very early role for her, mostly where she's not speaking. But yeah, so this was a bit of a surprise, bit of fun to watch this. It's got a very rousing finale, so I get the positive message in this. I mean, it's very thinly plotted, you know, quite frivolous stuff really, but yeah, entertaining enough. I definitely preferred it more than Sister Act. So yeah, thank you. You know who you are if you're watching this, for putting this one on your top 25. Good fun. Nina Menkes is an independent filmmaker. Her films have been restored recently. They have been showing on Mubi this past month. You can also buy her films collectively in a package called Cinematic Sorceress. Yeah, her films involve femininity, the male gaze, I guess, alienation, displacement, those kinds of themes. It seems she has been likened a little bit to Chantal Akerman and David Lynch at times for some of the sort of surreal aspects of her films, but really take from that what you will. I mean, just appreciate her films for being her films, I would say. But yeah, I watched 3 that were on Mubi, and 2 of those particularly struck me. One being Queen of Diamonds, which she made with her sister Tina Menkes. Tina, it seems, had to withdraw from making films maybe towards the end of the 90s for health reasons. But yeah, these collaborations with Tina in the 90s are very interesting. Queen of Diamonds has Tina as this sort of vampiric looking croupier who, you know, she's having to work all hours, I guess, at this blackjack table in Vegas. And yeah, it's this real sense of sort of isolation and alienation working this job, and not really having a sense of her proper identity or connection with her environment. There's a very long sequence showing her at the blackjack tables with just people coming and going. There's not much, there's no sort of dialogue, if you like, and people aren't really recognizing her. It's just her going through the job. It's a very fascinating scene. There's also some very sort of surreal imagery in this. There's a whole long sequence that involves her just watching a palm tree burn to the ground, and another where cops discover a person that has committed suicide in their car, and there are elephants swaying in the background. So yeah, there's lots of interesting imagery in Queen of Diamonds, and I feel sure that that film in particular will get more and more sort of recognition over the years, now that it's been restored and released. The other film, Magdalena Varaga, yeah, is very harsh, uncomfortable watch film with Tina Menkes there playing a prostitute who has been imprisoned, I think, for killing her pimp. And yeah, this again is a very uncomfortable kind of film to watch, particularly involving the scenes of prostitution where you don't see the sex act, but you'll see her face really pressed against the pillow, and yeah, it's the repetition of that with different types of customers make that a very sort of uncomfortable experience to watch. And yeah, again, her character is not really having a sense of identity. She works with another prostitute and they call themselves sisters, but they call themselves sisters because they are orphans. And yeah, so again, there's this whole kind of theme of alienation and loss of identity. So yeah, interesting films for sure from Nina Menkes. And finally, from 1971, a film called The Snow Goose. A very charming film, this, but unfortunately you can only watch rough copies of this on YouTube. As I understand it, the writer of this, Paul Gallico, he passed away, and in his will I believe he had wordings there which relate to preventing the further publication or release of the movie, so that's a real shame. This one stars Richard Harris and Jenny Agutter. Very lovely performances from both of them. It's set at a lighthouse on Essex Blackwater estuary, and they discover a wounded snow goose and tend to it, and this is all set around wartime as well, so you actually get Richard Harris in his small boat going off to assist with the Dunkirk invasion. So yeah, a very nice film. Shame it can't be more widely available, but yeah, I have an interest in snow geese, and so that's why I'm just mentioning it. And I will end this film now with some footage that I took of snow geese. So I will see you again. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.